Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead Q&A video. So it's been a while since I've done my last Q&A, and I wanted to wait a little bit after Comic-Con to get into this, and it's August 1st now, so yeah, let's actually just get into this Q&A here. So first of all, thank you so much for posting all of your questions. If you do want to take part in these Q&As, definitely go join the Discord. The server name is Appetite for the Dead. I usually do these Q&As like every single Wednesday. I mean, when The Walking Dead's not on, it might be every second or third Wednesday, or it's just sort of, obviously today's Friday, but I will do another Q&A for next Wednesday. And so if you do want to take part in that Q&A, go and join the Discord, and I will, I'll ask for questions at some point, early next week, and then I'll record that next Wednesday or whatever. And yeah, but I guess let's just get into the very first question here. Q&A, do you believe that the Walking Dead universe needs one more spin-off show per year so it fills out the year more and we can get more excitement in The Walking Dead again? Also, do you wish Kirkman announced a new Walking Dead comic series in his Comic-Con 2025 panel the other day? Love all you do. Well, first of all, thank you so much. And I guess on that last part, I would say that, yeah, I really do want Robert Kirkman to announce a new Walking Dead comic series, but I'm not expecting that until the deluxe, series is done. I think in the next 2 or 3 years, for sure, The Walking Dead Deluxe should be over. And so at that point, I feel like maybe we'll get, a new Walking Dead comic series because they got to do something. And so, at that point, it'll be really close to like 10 years since The Walking Dead ended, like the comics. And I think that, obviously he's talked about, doing more stories, or he's sort of given his thoughts on that. And I think that he would. I think there is more story to tell there. But I think it would be really incredible. I think that's the one thing about The Walking Dead right now is that, because it's past the comics, it's like hard to sort of reference certain moments of like, oh, I can't wait to see this happen. Like there are certain moments that they could do from the comic for sure, because there's a lot of moments that they never did with Rick and all of that. And, in a new series and stuff with Rick and Daryl, they could actually get into a lot of that. But I do believe that, a new comic series, with Carl being a lot older and all of that would be really incredible. And I think it would be really, honestly, like perfect timing for, after this whole era is over, for like a next generation show to have all new characters like Judith, RJ, Herschel, and everyone, a lot older, and seeing what the story will be at that point, right? But in terms of the very first question, does the Walking Dead universe need one more spin-off show per year? I do feel like it does, but it's not necessarily that we need another, spin-off, but it's more that I want another story separate from like the main characters, right? Like that's really my only issue, I would say, is that I want like, something like Fear the Walking Dead or just another original story in this universe that is just different from, what we have. I think just always being in this, story here with like Daryl and Maggie and all the other characters, like it's cool, but I do want like, that's sort of why I really liked Fear the Walking Dead, like obviously the later seasons were just like whatever, but I would say that like it was kind of refreshing to watch the other spinoffs because it was other characters in the same world, and it was kind of cool to see how these characters were surviving. So it was nice to like watch that, and it was something different, right? Q&A, do you think the spinoffs will all end before 2027? And if they do, what do you think the plan is going to be after the final season of Dead City and The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon? And do you think those spinoffs will have, then crossover and all that? I do think that is likely going to be happening. I think that, in terms of all the spinoffs ending before 2027, no, I don't see that happening because, Dead City seems to be getting a season 4. They're going to be filming season 3, I believe, in September, and then they're going to be doing like back-to-back filming. So I think that it's likely going to be early, 2027, or earlier, mid, right? 2027, because Dead City seems to come out in the spring. So like May or June or whatever at that point. I believe like halfway through 2027 is when these spinoffs will be over, but that's the thing. Like they're working on something right now, and it does seem like that's going to be sort of, planned out, for late 2027 for something to come out at that point, or maybe it's pushed off until 2028 or something like that. But yeah, I do think that, it's going to be going into 2027, and I think that's where the spinoffs are likely going to be over. Q&A, I never expected this to happen, and I am saddened to hear that Daryl Dixon is ending after 4 seasons. But will we actually see more spin-offs of The Walking Dead, or do you think we will possibly see a season 12 of The Walking Dead? And what do you expect from The Walking Dead universe? Well, a season 12 of The Walking Dead, like, I think it would be really cool to see that, but I think the thing about that is the reason they ended The Walking Dead, or at least it's the rumor, obviously we don't really necessarily know, but it seems to be because of a lot of what was happening, I guess, with a lot of the lawsuits and all of that, right? I believe it was with Frank Darabont. I could be wrong, but there was a lot of stuff happening, and I think that that's why they just ended that show and they started something new, and then obviously it's more money, this and that, or whatever, and I just think that that makes a lot of sense, and that's why they went with the spinoffs, and I think if they had all the characters together again, it's not going to be called The Walking Dead, even though that does make a lot of sense to call it The Walking Dead, but I don't think they're going to do that. I do think that it's going to be something else, like The Walking Dead, like literally The Ones Who Live season 2. Like, I think they'll go with something else like that over The Walking Dead season 12. I think it would be so cool to see that, but it is one of those things where, you know, with where The Walking Dead ended, it was kind of nice in the sense that it really works for, you know, the comic story. But if you were to like add a season 12 to it and say like 20, 30 years down the road, you go to watch, 12 seasons of The Walking Dead, you're going to be very confused going from the finale of season 11 to, I guess, the premiere of season 12, because it's going to be like, what, Rick and Daryl together again? And it's like, wait, what just happened? There's all these other shows you got to watch. Like, that's why I don't think that's going to happen. I think it would just be a lot. And I think that, with all the stuff that happened before and everything, I think it just makes a lot of sense that it's going to be a new spinoff. And I personally believe that it's going to be a brand new spinoff entirely. It'll be called something entirely different that that we don't even know yet. Like, it's not going to be The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live season 2. At least I don't necessarily believe that, just because I really I don't know, I think if the spinoffs were going to keep going for a while, then I would probably believe that, yeah, maybe a season 2 of The Ones Who Live could happen. But because it's ending right away, I don't know if they're going to do that. Like, to me, it almost makes a lot more sense to have the characters in a new original spinoff or something like that. Like, that's the thing. There's so many, stories that they could do. Like, I think once Daryl gets back to America, there's just, Morgan's out there, Dwight's out there, like all the characters being in the same area again. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that's what's really exciting about, I guess the spinoffs ending. Like, it's kind of cool to see the characters going off to France and like Spain and seeing the world and, how different the apocalypse is everywhere, especially like in New York City as well. But I think the thing about that is, as exciting as it was when they first announced it, it was because, it was exciting to think of what the story meant overall and how all of that was going to build to like this really big epic story. And it never really did. And so I think now they're building to something, but it's one of those things where I think Daryl, going back to America and seeing all the characters there, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think it's really what everyone wants. Like, anytime they make any sort of post about The Walking Dead, it's always like, well, where's Rick and Daryl? When are we going to see those characters reuniting, right? Like, it's just everywhere. So I do think that that is likely going to be something that they probably do afterwards. Q&A, with Scott Gimple announcing Tales is basically cancelled, are you disappointed or happy that they seem to be wrapping up everything quicker than we expected? I guess I haven't seen anywhere where he did say that, but I guess he did say that you couldn't find the question, so just ignore the question. But I did just read the question. I will say, yeah, so ignoring that, because I don't think he said that Tales was canceled. In terms of, am I disappointed or happy that they seem to be wrapping up everything quicker than I expected? I'm not necessarily disappointed or anything like that. I'm actually, I would say, if anything, happy, because I've been saying it, like, I just want a direction, really, with The Walking Dead, because I want the stories to matter. And I think the last year, it's just been like, well, what is happening? I enjoyed Dead City Season 2, but I was waiting for, like, that reference to something else, and it just never happened. And I like where the story got to eventually, but I think, yeah, wrapping up the spinoffs here in the next couple of years, and then we'll see what happens afterwards. That is where I think a lot of people want The Walking Dead to be. And so that's exciting to me. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not disappointed at all, because it seems like they're building to something right now. And I think that, getting that sooner, rather than waiting until 2030 or whatever, like, I think that's a good thing, because, yeah, again, I'm just happy that we have a direction with The Walking Dead. I think that's just really my big thing right now, is like, okay, we know when this is ending. We know where this is going. Q&A, do you think Daryl Dixon season 4 being the last season could actually be a reunion between Rick and Daryl, like the way Rick reunited with Judith and RJ at the end of The Ones Who Live? Honestly, I would not want it like that. And would you be doing content about the Fantastic Four movie? I actually totally forgot about the Fantastic Four movie. I did want to do a discussion video about the movie because I did actually really like the movie a lot, but I feel like it'd be a little bit too late to talk about that now because the movie came out like a week or two ago. But in terms of, you know, the ending being like that, like Daryl reuniting with Rick, I think I think it could happen, obviously. I just think it's one of those things, though, where do you really want to have Rick and Daryl reuniting just like that? Like, Daryl just makes it back and then sees Rick, and that's it? Like, that's the ending? We don't get a story with them talking about anything, like, about what happened? Daryl asking him, like, you know, like, I didn't know that we all thought you were gone, and you know what I mean? Like, we all want those scenes. There's so much story to be told there. And honestly, really exciting story. Like, that's the craziest thing about The Walking Dead and like the stories it's telling right now is like, I don't want to say the stories they're telling right now don't matter, because obviously they're coming up with these stories and they're writers and it is what it is, right? But like, there's a lot of stories like that where I'm like, I want to see Rick and Negan actually talk about, you know, I guess what happened in the very beginning of season 9 and just some discussion there about who was right or wrong. There's a lot of things that you're able to do there. Like, there's a lot of stuff where it would make every single episode so exciting to have these characters talking about this and that and where things go. You know, seeing Rick, I guess, reconnect with Judith and talking about, you know, what life's been like over the last however long. And, you know, maybe he's having a hard time connecting with Judith because she's just a lot different now. And maybe there's a lot of issues there. Like, there's some really amazing stuff you're able to actually really tell, like stories that really matter with those characters. But, you know, we're getting stories, you know, in France and Spain and New York City, and I'm totally okay with that. But that's sort of my point, though, is that there's so much there that to end The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 4 with Daryl and Rick reunite and then that's it, that would be so disappointing. I would just be like, really? Like, that's it? You know what I mean? So I think for me, that's why I want, you know, that other part of the story, because I think there's so much that you're able to do there. Like, there is a lot you can do. And I think to ignore a lot of that, it would honestly just be, I think, frustrating as someone who has watched The Walking Dead for a really long time. Like, that was something that I really wanted to see. There's a lot of storylines from around that time that I want to see them, you know, I guess, get back to and just sort of, I guess, end a lot of those storylines, because it's one of those things, I think, with The Walking Dead that really works a lot with the characters and this world. Is like, you can go to a moment, you know, in season 1 or whatever, 2, 3, 4, and it's sort of referenced now maybe in the spinoffs or whatever, and like a lot of it like will make sense, and it's like closing a storyline from this, and you see how these characters have developed over time. I think there's a lot more character development there for Daryl and Rick, and for a lot of other characters, where you can sort of finally end everything here and do everything where it's sort of, you know, maybe you're going to the next generation with Judith and RJ and Herschel, and, you know, they're going to be the new leads of The Walking Dead. And I think that you have to properly end, I would say, this era before you get into something else like that. And that's kind of what I want. So I guess to answer your question, like, I mean, I guess I would agree. Like, I don't want Rick and Daryl to reunite at the very end of season 4. I think it would be very rushed and really, I guess, frustrating to see. And yeah, I would really not want to see that at all, because I think there's a lot more that you can do there. I mean, you're telling all these other stories that are not really, I don't want to say as exciting, but obviously telling stories with Rick and Daryl and all these other characters is way more exciting. And yeah, anyways. I'm going to leave it here, though, so definitely post all your thoughts down below on, I guess, a lot of what I've been talking about here with Daryl Dixon season 4 being the last season and everything. I know that's been a lot of the talk right now, because obviously that was pretty big news to get, and I mean, yeah, we'll see where that goes after that, but definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.